Apologize. I'm actually double booked. I'm chairing a Port Commission meeting right now at 9 o'clock. So if you hear that noise in the background, they're waiting for me. But I did want to kick it off whenever you all are ready.
Okay. All right. It looks like the live stream just started, so we will go ahead and get started then. Um, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to a meeting of the Prince George's County House Delegation. It is Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025, approximately 9:06 a.m. I wanted to first clarify, I think there was a notice that went out that said this would be a joint meeting with the House and the Senate delegation for Prince George's County. Actually, that was a little bit of a clerical error. It is just the House delegation for Prince George's County that will be meeting with members of the Maryland Department of Transportation this morning to discuss a proposal that has been brought forth. It's been pending for a while now with the Virginia Department of Transportation with regards to their proposal to extend their toll lanes that they have in the state of Virginia across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge over into Oxon Hill, Maryland. And so I wanted to give that clarification. I know it's our interim right now. We usually do not meet during the summer. So I really want to thank all of the members of the delegation for really taking time out of their busy schedules to do this important meeting during this interim session. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We have several members from MDOT with us, most notably Secretary Whitfield, who is here. And I know you are doing double duty right now, Mr. Secretary. And so I will turn it over to you first, just to provide any remarks that you want to provide. And then I'm sure you'll turn it over to your team because I know you got to get back to the Port Authority. So
Thank you so much, Delegate. Yeah, so Tony Bridges is here. He's Assistant Secretary. Will Pines from the Highway Administration, and Joe McAndrew, who does a lot of our work in the DMV. So first and foremost, you know that VDOT, this is a VDOT project that, yes, in the process, we have to be a part of that. But at the end of the day, let me just be very direct. We're going to be where the local governments are and where you are, right, at the end of the day. We've heard the concerns. We have the similar concerns. They are pushing forward. We don't believe they are listening to our concerns, to be frank. And basically, they've been plowing ahead. And so we're going to be vocal about that during the public participation process that's playing out now. Obviously, if they don't change their sort of mode of operation, we'll deal with that in September when a vote comes, right? And we'll be working again hand in glove with you all and the Senate side as well and the local side as well. We met with Southern Maryland, for instance, as well, because this is a big issue for all of us. So we're on top of it. We want to make sure we're hearing from you. If there's something that we're missing. But at the end of the day, we've got to get this right. So I just wanted to convey that to you. And obviously, we can get into some of the details of how the process is working, what the next steps are. But again, at the end of the day, I've spoken to the governor about it. We've got to protect the interests of Maryland, and we're going to do that. But the VDOT they can do what they do, right? I mean, we can't prevent them from moving forward what in the process. We can prevent them from doing anything in Maryland, but what they do in Virginia, they do in Virginia. That's that is the process. So I just wanted to share that with you, if I may. Again, the team is here. They can get into any of the details, and I apologize, but I did want to just to jump on very quickly to convey that to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do see a hand up. Delegate Healy, do you have a question for the Secretary?
I actually do. I just want to be, since you laid out what Virginia can do and what Maryland can do, I want to know who has control of the bridge itself. We all paid for it. We all built it together, and the water of the Potomac is in Maryland. So I want to know what our what our input is to what happens on the bridge itself.
Sure. Well, two things. One is, there's the whole Transportation Planning Board process, that whole process. So they play a role in this, and that's part of the federal process. And Will, can you talk specifically to the ownership of the bridge and to the degree of that?
Oh, there we go.
Good.
I was not letting me come off of mute there for a second. Good morning, everyone. Will Pines, Maryland State Highway Administrator. Glad to be here to join you this morning. So the bridge, we do have a MOU with VDOT and DDOT. They were contributors during the original construction. So there's a cost sharing agreement arrangement for the bridge itself in relation to inspections and maintenance. There's a corridor wide contract that we have for maintenance. In terms of the process with NEPA, they are the lead agency as that's defined in the NEPA process, where ultimately they are going to work with Federal Highway directly to get the ultimate concurrence on the NEPA document. And we are a cooperating agency. So we help to inform the process, give our opinion on whether or not the ultimate preferred alternative is appropriate or not. However, they are the lead agency and can provide the recommendation for the preferred alternative. It's generally not likely that the federal administration would concur with that if we were vehemently opposed to the construction. But certainly Virginia has talked about potential options of scaling back to stay within Virginia, but that has its own consequences in Maryland as well.
Will, how about the ownership of the bridge?
It's split. That it's not all Maryland. It's not all VDOT. There's an agreement that divides our responsibilities in terms of ownership.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I was clear to the
Okay,
question.
if I could just do one quick follow-up, Madam Chair. Anyway,
All right. Yeah, go ahead. Sure. I was muted
yeah,
there.
I'm sorry. The part of what was done when the bridge was built was that a whole area of the bridge was reinforced so that it could potentially support train traffic across there for an extension of the metro system across that bridge. Is that in the contract? Is it in the agreements? Or, I mean, because we're hearing that Virginia wants to use that for, automobile traffic for going forward. And how would that impact the ability to go and make that an extension of the metro system in the future?
Would you like me to touch that one, Paul?
If you could, I apologize. I really do need to jump. I've got this other.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. But the people are here that can answer all of your questions. So thank you so much. And thank you, Chairman. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sure. So, Delegate Healy, we have expressed our clear direction to VDOT that we expect that this preferred alternative would support a multimodal future for the bridge that would not exclude Metro Rail extension across the bridge. The original NEPA, when the Woodrow Wilson Bridge was constructed, included that preservation of space for a future expansion of rail. That VDOT at prior Metro Washington Council of Governments Transportation Planning Board meetings has indicated that they were going to articulate to us how they would ensure that if toll lanes were constructed, that they would in the future be able to remove toll lanes at the point when that Metro Rail would be constructed. That is one of the core issues that we have that we feel like they have yet to adequately demonstrate to us how they would do that. They verbally said that they would do certain things to sort of unreel the toll lanes. If they were put in, they would be able to take them out so that the Metro Rail could be constructed. But we've yet to see adequate commitments in writing that would really memorialize that in a satisfactory way.
Thank you.
Delegate Woods, I see you have your hand up, and I'll let you ask your question. I think what might be helpful is after Delegate Woods's question is for MDOT to kind of just do a overview, a more detailed overview about the project, where we are in the process, just kind of give us an outline of the process in terms of moving forward, votes that would need to be taken, when and where. And, I think that would be helpful for all the members. And then we can get into questions. But Delegate Woods, I know you had your hand up.
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much. And thank you all for agreeing to meet with us. Mr. Pines, as you know, I've met with folk from MDOT, from VDOT, from WMATA multiple times about this. And so I would like to ask, because I have been very much involved in this, if you could address a number of issues. One in particular, the question was asked, who owns the bridge? And it was said, all three own it. But the truth is, and please clarify, that Maryland actually owns the majority of the bridge because the section of the Potomac River is within Maryland's borders, and that gives us majority ownership of the bridge. I'd like for you to address that. Also address the fact that we already have correspondence from the Senate of Virginia, who is also opposed to this as excuse me, I'm sorry, let me slow down. In addition to a number of other organizations on the Virginia side, and the fact that Delegate Healy mentioned the multi-modal features for the bridge, that in fact the bridge has been equipped already for light rail in that middle section. And so if I could ask, and then I'll just come back after you speak, but if you could specifically address that and the concerns that I know I've been attending meetings since last year, that MDOT themselves, you all have requested information from VDOT. You've requested studies, you've requested follow-up that you have not received. And I know you talked about being a cooperating agency, but that's been a concern because I've talked to multiple people from MDOT, as you're aware, Mr. Pines, who have articulated concerns that VDOT is not responding. And I'll use the word not being transparent. I'm not making that your word, but if you would just address that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yep. So thank you for your questions. It was a lot. So if I forget any piece, please help me come back to it. So the shared arrangement of ownership between Maryland and Virginia of the bridge is a little bit complex. I'll just say in short that we do have a significant stake in the bridge ownership. And so we certainly have a right to weigh in on the bridge. It's not in any way like Virginia is going to be able to fully negate our proper control of the bridge. And frankly, the discussions that we've had with them about potential changes in the limits of their preferred alternative, when they've talked about, as the secretary mentioned earlier, about options of limiting this to Virginia construction, it's really been in Virginia, and they haven't really talked about going onto the bridge. So maybe that's an issue for the future, but I don't want to wish issues when we've got enough already at this point. In terms of us submitting comments and as part of our role as a cooperating agency, we have had three core concerns with their posture. One is, traffic analysis. Oftentimes in the Maryland process, we do more detailed, it's called an interstate access point analysis that will give you more detailed impacts to local roads and kind of out beyond even some information on the interstate proper that VDOT generally in their NEPA process, they do later in the process. And so we've requested that at minimum, they would provide a written commitment to when they would do that and how they would mitigate the traffic impacts in their preferred alternatives. We've also shared with them comments around the Metro Rail, as we mentioned before, and sort of how they could preserve that space on the bridge. And we know that, this is intended to be a multimodal project where transit would be supported aside from the Metro Rail in the interim until a solution were to be brought forward there, that there needs to be substantive support for other mode uses through this project. And so specifically in the form of transit commitments. So we've already made those comments to VDOT. We were at a public meeting last night. Ray Moravec is here with us today. He shared those comments orally as part of the record testimony for the NEPA process at the public hearing in Virginia last night. And we intend to continue to memorialize that same feedback to Virginia. Did I answer all your questions? I think I did, but if I missed anything, we can go back to it.
Well, do you want to also?
The other thing was just the fact that the majority leader the Virginia State Senate has provided a letter of their concern and disagreement with this, that dated April 25th. I'm happy to share all of that
Yeah,
information.
we
I
have a
number
copy of that letter.
No, I
VDOT
met with the Prince
has
George's
verbally
delegation.
said to us that they're working with their majority leader to work through the issues outlined in the letter. Beyond that, what specifically they're discussing, we're not privy to all the details there. Joe, I'm sorry you got cut off there. I wanted to give you an opportunity to add to anything.
No, you're good. Sorry about that.
Sure. Okay. Well, if that addresses that, Mr. Pines, do you want to introduce all of the members of your team that are here, who they are, and their roles within MDOT? And then, like I said, if you can just kind of give us an overview and a timeline, that would be great.
Sure. I think why don't we, Joe, if you're okay, we'll go through the MDOT, the Secretary's office first and let you guys introduce yourselves, Joe, Tony, and Matt. And
Okay.
then we'll go to the SHA team and kind of end on Ray, who is
Okay.
one of our leads. Drew and Ray have been the leads at the public meetings, and they're in the trenches on the technical aspects and can kind of give you a little bit between. Drew is one of our main subject matter experts with the Transportation Planning Board, and Ray on the NEPA side. So Joe, I'll turn it over to you to run through the TSOT.
Thank you, Will, and thank you to our for the opportunity to be with everybody today. My name is Joe McAndrew, Assistant Secretary for Planning and Project Development here at the Secretary's Office. So working on the development and then the planning and programming side of things. I'm also here. I'll list everybody off just for speed and efficiency with the Honorable Tony Bridges, Assistant Secretary for Equity and Engagement here. And a friend of many of you by the smiles on your face. You can't have him back. He's too good of a colleague. I'm also here with Matt Michler, Director of the Office of Government Affairs here at the Secretary's Office. Drew Morrison is a Senior Policy Advisor for Planning and Programming supporting my work. He also is a designee for us participating in the Transportation Planning Board. So that is the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, MPO, the entity that does the long-range planning, federally required long-range planning, which Ray will touch on as a step in the process of where we're at today. Looking through the list, I think I have covered everybody from TSO, so I'll hand it back to Will.
Okay, so I'm joined also by my Chief of Staff, Nicole Wojciechowski. She oversees part of our government relations team along with other offices here at State Highway. Looking who else we have here from the team. We also have April King, our Director of our Office of Government Affairs, and she helps with constituent services for you on all things SHA, not just simply this project issues, but anything you may need. April's our go-to person there. And finally, I'm going to wrap it up with our Deputy Chief Engineer of our Planning, Engineering, and Real Estate and Environment team, Ray Moravec, who has been the lead working with his team, Barry Kudrowski and some others on the NEPA side of things in our role with VDOT as the cooperating agency. So, Joe, is there anything you guys want to run through on TPB first, or we can let Ray run through a top line overview and then we'll come back?
Yeah, I think if Ray can do both NEPA and TPB, because they're not linked, but they're coming to a head at the same time, would be good.
Okay.
So good morning, everyone, and good morning to see some of you we were working with through this. Just to give you a quick run through on the time frame, as Will mentioned earlier, VDOT is currently hosting the public hearings to present their recommended preferred alternative to get public feedback and comment on that. As he mentioned, we have a statement on those three key issues that Will was mentioning that we read at the meeting last night. We'll be reading at the one tomorrow night in Oxon Hill. And then there are two more next week in Virginia, which will be saying the same statement, putting Maryland's position forward as part of that. That's part of the National Environmental Policy Act process, the NEPA process, in which they are to take those comments. They have to document the comments received from the elected officials as well as any of the agencies and the public that give comment and testimony. And then as part of their development of the NEPA document, they have to show how those have been addressed as part of the overall NEPA process. In addition to the public hearing that's going on, as part of the NEPA process, there's another step that is the review agencies review and concurrence on the recommended preferred alternative. They have a meeting on the 11th of July or June to be presenting the recommended preferred alternative and then trying to seek concurrence from the agencies this summer by July or August at the latest. That's part of the NEPA review process. That's all required prior to them preparing the way their process is. They're including the recommended preferred alternative as part of the NEPA document and would be producing that for public review and additional comment later this year, which they're saying their schedule basically says late 2025 for that. That's part of the NEPA process. In parallel to that is the Transportation Planning Board process. And for any transportation project to be moving forward in the region, it must be included as part of the long-range transportation plan for the MPO. That is also tested for air quality conformity and other things as it relates to the transportation improvements. Last year, there was a Transportation Planning Board meeting in which they were looking to add this project to a Visualize 2050, which is the plan that Washcog, of course, is looking to adopt here, possibly before the end of the year, is their goal. At that time, it was deferred for inclusion, and a position was taken that they would do a joint analysis on the air quality, where one would be without this project, and another would be with the 2-lane express toll lanes included for a worst case scenario as it relates to the air quality conformity efforts in order to keep those efforts moving forward prior to a decision being made. They will be meeting again in September in order to present findings and the activities have taken place since last year in order to have that decision on whether it's included in the long-range transportation plan for Visualize 2050. That's a key step because the importance of that is that in order to get NEPA approval, the project must be included in the long-range transportation plan in order for NEPA approval to be given for the project. So those are really the two key activities here moving forward, while parallel, but working together of requirements that are needed as part of the process. So with that, I'll leave it open to questions, or Drew, if you want to add anything from TPB side that I may have missed.
I think you covered it well.
You were breaking up there a little bit, Drew, but I think you was trying to say that he covered everything. So, okay.
Yep, he did.
All right. And then did we introduce Ray and the other state highway folks, or do we need to still get to that?
We're good.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you so much for that overview. Wanted to see if there's any additional questions. I see Delegate Wood, you dropped something in the chat. I don't know.
I was just responding to who the person was that you could reach out to for comments.
Okay.
And Michelle Shropshire.
Okay.
Put her information in the chat.
I agree with that. There was a question in the chat about who to contact. I provided Ray. Ray was speaking and providing the update when the question came in. So I provided his email address if you want to have feedback direct to the state highway team working on this. But I do agree with Delegate Woods that the direct contact to VDOT ensures that that feedback gets memorialized officially as part of the process.
And if I can add real quick, Will, for everyone's FYI and for your constituents, we do have a project portal page up that we have on our website that directs you to VDOT's website. And VDOT's website project has the public displays, the materials, and the contact information there as well for folks to see if they would like to see the information that VDOT has presented.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay. All right, are there any questions from any of the members? You can either raise your actual hand or virtual hand.
Jared, you mind if I say something
Sure.
real quick? As the secretary said, we're here to listen, ultimately to do this work in partnership with everybody here. As Delegate Woods knows from last night's meeting with Southern Maryland constituents and partners, I think this is an important point for in time for everybody to state, questions and priorities or wants for this project. And ideally, you guys can share that with us as well. Because at the end of the day, we're looking to move in partnership here for or improving or not with this project. But I think it's also important for the record on this project for Team Maryland to ultimately be on the record. We will do that from an administrative function. We're going to be meeting with the Senate delegation as well to engage and make sure that we are fully aware of kind of positions and interests. But I think just wanted to plug that as that it's an important point to formally ask those questions, share that information with us so we can be fully made aware and then ultimately be working together.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I know you're meeting with the Senate as well. And I'm sure this will come up. Delegate Woods, I see your hand.
Yes, and I don't mean to keep, but you already know how I feel, Mr. Pines, Mr. McAndrew, and I think it's extremely important that the concerns and I want to just talk about George Clark's comments yesterday. The whole issue and concern of non-transparency, the fact that VDOT was holding meetings. I actually happened upon the meeting that took place in Washington, D.C. last year at the Martin Luther King Library, and then attended a meeting in Prince George's County. My staff attended the second meeting that was held while we were pretty much at the end of session in a crisis point, and we weren't present. And my concern was that, comments were made about us not being present when in fact VDOT was well aware that we were at the end of our legislative session. They only had one meeting in Prince George's County. They weren't aware that I had a staff person there who winded up getting up and speaking and bringing a lot of things to their attention. But transparency has been a big concern, and I'd sure like to hear how you all feel about that, particularly as cooperating agencies. And if you could share with this delegation the number of requests that you've made to VDOT that they have not responded to, the concerns that you have articulated that they have not responded to.
Yeah, Will, do you want to talk about your engagement directly with the commissioner? But I think it would probably be helpful for Ray to speak up here, who is Ray and his team are in a fairly regular dialogue with Virginia and the project team. And I think we share, as the secretary said, share concerns with them. And some of our concerns have not been fully addressed. And I think we have shared that recently and asked that those rapidly get addressed. But Will, you want to say a few words?
Sure. So I want to be both fair to Virginia and also realistic. They, in some ways, have been good partners. We've been included in regular meetings along the way and, have been privy to the analysis that they've done. Last year, when we started to express concerns to them that progress wasn't being made on some of our comments, particularly around traffic impacts and the analysis around the traffic study, I personally talked to the commissioner of Virginia saying, you need to make better headway. At the time, they kind of commented that they were having some challenges with one of their engineers and, kind of framed it around the normal project hiccups with one of their PMs, and that they needed to restructure it and redo their analysis. So we got a lot of information later than what we would typically do. Virginia has different processes than we do and how they manage NEPA. They tend to go into less detail on traffic analysis than we do during NEPA. So that's already kind of led to some just inherent conflicts where our processes are different. But we've been raising the same questions for several months now, both in writing and verbally. I have personally talked to the commissioner repeatedly around those three issues. Again, local traffic and just traffic analysis in general, transit commitments, and how they're going to preserve Metro Rail long term if toll lanes were installed. That's been the theme from the beginning. They've known that. And as time has went on, we've kind of, said we're sort of done with here listening to the excuses. We need to be emphatically clear that if we don't get this information, we're heading into a bad place. So I don't want to overstate. I think they have had some valid normal project hiccups that have come up along the way that our project team has tried to work through with them. They also have different processes than us, which is allowable, under federal rules. We have our own business practices, and that is allowable. But there are some things that we do feel like that as time has went on, it's kind of getting to the point where we're like, it's long enough. We need to be really clear, 100% publicly on the record that you need to resolve these issues, those three issues that I've outlined. So, Ray, you want to add anything more to that?
No, I think you covered the main there, Will. I think that, as you have, just one of the challenges, their procedures and their process is different from ours in the way they move through with some of the projects, where we've gone into this greater detail. And that's where we've asked and tried to advise them that in order to support our constituents, this is the information that will be required. This is what they're looking to see. This is what they're used to seeing. And that's why we've continued to make this request for the additional information so that it could be available and to make an educated decision based on that information. And that's, as Will clearly stated, that's the position we're getting in now. We're putting that forward, that this is what we would like to see in order to be able to move the process forward.
Thank you. All right, Delegate Woods, do you have any additional questions?
Yeah, just one other question I wanted to ask. Can you tell us why, given the number of concerns that we've articulated, that they continue to have the majority of meetings in Virginia and not in Maryland, not addressing the people from Maryland who have articulated their concerns? And then the last question I think I'm going to ask is, can you talk a little bit about the study that reportedly took place, that to date we have not found anyone who they said that there was a study that took place that people supported this project, and to date we have not been informed of or found anyone who supported it. If you all can address that.
Will and Ray, do you guys want to take those on? I think the study the delegates referred to is the survey that was done, right? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if I can on that, and it was so VDOT did conduct, and we found out about this about a month or so ago, right before the same time you did, Delegate Woods, on that the survey had been conducted. They had shared with us the findings of the survey. We were not informed that they were doing a survey or aware of the survey prior to getting the results of the survey, so we did not have any input on the questions or anything associated. It was an independent survey done that they did, working with a group that they work with in the Virginia area for this. It supposedly canvassed Prince George's and Fairfax County and others as part of that. But it was an independent group that had conducted the survey. We do not have access to, who was conducted or who was contacted, how they were contacted. You would have to reach out for VDOT for that information, but we did get the results of the survey, and we did get a copy of the questions that were asked after the survey had been completed. And we can share what we have on that side. So,
and then we have delegate as requested and encouraged Virginia to hold more meetings in Maryland. And I think, as we discussed last night with the Southern Maryland delegation, encourage them to also come to a discussion in Southern Maryland on this project in the near term as well. They are the prime on this project and can establish kind of the meeting calendar. We can encourage as a cooperating agency and will continue to.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there any other members that have any questions? Oh, Delegate Harrison, I didn't know if you were.
Yes, I was, always trying to find the right button at the right time can be a challenge.
Okay.
So do we actually have, I guess, a realistic timeline on when, I guess NEPA would make their final recommendation? Because I think, for us, we want to make sure while all of these meetings and everything are going on, I think it would be great if we had an end date in sight so that we make sure that we are working effectively in our time and not just constantly running behind and trying to catch up.
So the way the NEPA timeline works and the NEPA process and where they are right now, they're having the public hearings for the recommended preferred alternative. So, it's an opportunity now to comment and give those comments related to the recommended preferred alternative. They will be presenting that recommended preferred alternative. I did forgot to mention this when you were asking earlier about their schedule. They do have to present that to the Commonwealth Transportation Board with their recommendation in July, and then a decision in August as it relates to the recommended preferred alternative. With that, they also are seeking concurrence at this time in July timeframe from the environmental agencies through their NEPA review process. And then from there, they have to finalize the environmental assessment. The environmental assessment will be completed this fall is their schedule. In order to complete the environmental assessment, why they've reached this decision, the outreach that's been done is to be documented as part of that. That will be a publicly available document and made available for additional public comments this fall. And then early next year, and I'm going by the dates on their schedule, is early 2026. They would be coordinating with the Federal Highway Administration, Virginia Division, they are the ones that would actually, the Federal Highway Virginia Division are the ones that would issue a record of decision or finding of no significant impact for this project in order to complete the NEPA process. And just so you're aware, we have coordinated and have made the Maryland Division, as well as with Maryland agencies, are aware of the process and timeline for them to be giving input and comments as well.
Thank you. Did you have any additional questions, Delegate Harrison? No, okay. Delegate Healy.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for the presentations. I was wondering if MDOT or whatever part of MDOT is the relevant one could provide us with whatever links that we can put out to social media to encourage people to put comments into the NEPA process. We've done that on other projects, and it's very effective sometimes when people, especially if we are given some talking points so that we can explain to people why it's important that they get on the record, get their opinions on the record so that it becomes part of the process, and include the timelines so that people know when they can put their comments in.
Delegate Healy, I just dropped in the chat the location for the web link for the comment form.
Okay.
right.
And if I could, Latasha, could you make sure that everybody gets it after the meeting that some of us don't know how to connect things from Zoom meetings to our emails?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, any additional questions? Okay. You did address one of my questions just now in your comments, because I was going to ask about the environmental impacts. And so it sounds like they're going to take care of that on the latter end of the process. Like you said, we're more accustomed to kind of having that information more on the front end. And so, and I see Delegate Woods put a comment in the chat. Is it true the environmental assessment report is not actually due before the final decision is made in September? And I guess that's her question about the environmental assessment that they have to do.
So just to clarify there, when you say September, that would be the ruling by the Transportation Planning Board. It is not required to be completed before the ruling with the Transportation Planning Board. They need the Transportation Planning Board ruling in order to be able to complete the environmental assessment document. So they have to show in the environmental assessment that it's consistent with the local plans and programs. So that step of the planning board concurrence is important for them to complete the environmental assessment.
Interesting.
But they did provide, just for clarity with the public meeting and fairness toward the VDOT partners, a summary of the impacts to date has been provided as part of the public meetings. So there is a summary of what the impacts for what they have as their three alternatives retained: the no-build alternative, the one-lane ET or express toll lane, and then the two-lane alternative. And they have a summary table that quantifies the impacts associated with that as part of their presentation that's going on right now at the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And I can also drop in the chat. That document is called the Resource Identification and Impact Analysis Methodologies. That's the broader report. Then there's the content, as Ray said, that's kind of consolidated at the actual public hearings.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Ray, you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add is there are a series of technical reports that go along with the environmental assessment that are developed working closely with the review and regulatory agencies. As part of our role as a cooperating agency, we are getting those draft documents and providing detailed comments as a result on those. We also have had, while this is VDOT's process and it's going through their NEPA review, we have had them provide presentations to the Maryland. We have our interagency review process we have with the Maryland agencies, and have had them come and present that information to the Maryland review and regulatory agencies as well. It gets a little tricky between the state lines there on, even the Corps of Engineers is in Norfolk for Virginia, but in Baltimore for Maryland, and just trying to make sure the agencies, to the greatest extent practical, we're including them and making sure they're getting the information.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. All right, any other questions from any other members? Okay. And besides, oh, yes, Delegate Lehman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And just briefly, if you could go back over the timeline of the EA, it sounds like coinciding with the actual decision by the recommendation by the planning board. And where is, and it's been years, I was once an environmental reporter on the Hill, and I knew this stuff like the back of my hand, but whether both an EA, an environmental assessment, and an environmental impact statement is needed. I thought an EA was a precursor to an EIS.
So an EA is an assessment done to determine whether an environmental impact statement is needed or not, which is correct. In order to trigger an environmental impact statement, it would have to show that there is, the keyword there is a significant impact to resources. And that's a determination that's made working closely with the agencies. If they felt that the impacts were significant, then the lead federal agency, which in this case is Federal Highway, would request that an environmental impact statement need to be prepared. But a lot of the methodology in the environmental assessment are consistent with what's done in an environmental impact statement. That's where that final decision would be made prior to them issuing a finding of no significant impact for the environmental assessment.
Okay, and thank you for that clarification. Do you have any sense of whether this could lead to an EIS, or are you thinking not, or you just don't know?
Based on the information they have and, the recent effort, I mean, a lot of the improvements being done within the existing corridor and within the median area. So it likely wouldn't trigger an environmental impact statement I'll just say from my opinion. I won't say that's a federal highway position, because a lot of those improvements are within that median area, which has already been a disturbed area, or through the other improvements that have been done over the years in this Woodrow Wilson Bridge corridor. But if it were going outside of that, or if we were looking at a new structure or something like that, then you would have seen it, because the previous Woodrow Wilson Bridge project, when we did replace the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, that was done as an environmental impact statement because of the impacts to the Potomac River,
Right.
as well as the communities and other things that would be disturbed as part of that process.
Right, I do remember that. So last question, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Sure, sure.
And I don't know if you went over this in the beginning. I was kind of multitasking and like most people on outside of session with other jobs, but what percentage of this project is, distance-wise, percentage-wise, in the state of Virginia versus the state of Maryland? What's that breakdown?
I don't know that we have it as a percentage. If I could share the screen for a moment, I think I have the capability to do that here. I can just show you a graphical map of the limits. We'd have to.
Sure. That would be useful, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Ms. Coleman, can you allow Mr. Pines?
Yes. You have permission.
Okay. Are you able to see the map of the project limits?
Yes.
It goes essentially from basically 395 over to just east of Maryland 210.
Yeah.
Ray, any comments on this other than the map? I don't, as a percentage, we'd have to do a little bit of math here, and we're engineers, we could do that, but I didn't come prepared to give that answer. So sorry.
I don't have that exact breakdown. I was trying to look real quick too to see if I had the mileage breakdown, but I don't have that on my fingertips right now.
Yeah, visually, just really roughly, it looks like 2/3 Virginia, 1/3 Maryland, or maybe slightly more, maybe 70-30-ish. But that's just,
Right.
Eyeballing it. But I guess what I was getting at is, even though a lot less of the, project distance-wise is in the state of Maryland, it would seem to me, I mean, I don't know, because it's been years since I've, looked at or dealt with EAs or EISs. Like, conceivably, could there be an argument for a full-blown EIS in the Maryland part of the project, but not in Virginia? Does that ever happen? Is that a possible scenario?
Ray, I'm going to turn that one over to you. Ray's our planning expert here. I personally haven't heard of that, but I'm going to let him.
No, the key there would be you have to show as part of the process that you have what's called independent utility for a project on why the limits of the project are identified as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Here, a lot of the reasons for that coming into Maryland is in improving the corridor through Virginia is where is that traffic going as you leave the state of Virginia. And as I think Secretary Wiedefeld, as far as Administrator Pines, also identified, if they cut one short at US 1, they have to show that there's a reason why they would cut it short at 1 from that independent utility standpoint. But they identified the really with the operations that are here, that there are those movements that occur onto 295 as well as continuing on the Capital Beltway in Maryland. So that's sort of why the limits are what the limits are. It's a VDOT-led effort. That's why we are actually our position with the NEPA document is we are a cooperating agency. The word cooperating agency is to show that we do have a significant stake within the study that's being done, and that allows us that opportunity to be at the table, provide those formal comments, and coordinate that with the agencies so that they get Maryland's position recorded as part of that effort. And that's why we had agreed to be a cooperating agency for this project while it is a VDOT-led study.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. And who are the other cooperating agencies, since you brought that up?
Greg, while you look that up, I do want to make one other point to Delegate's question earlier about TPB approval and NEPA approval. They are, within the Code of Federal Regulations, when you do projects, there are multiple separate codified approval points. The approvals through the MPO, they have some connections to NEPA, like air quality conformity approval has some of the analysis from NEPA that helps to support it. But ultimately, the TPB vote to include the project in their visualized 2050 plan is technically a separate approval action from the NEPA approval. They're not, one doesn't necessarily rely on the other. They're discrete approvals that are both codified as an action required by the federal government.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question, I see your hand, Delegate Woods. Who are the other cooperating agencies?
So the others listed as cooperating agencies are the Army Corps of Engineers and the Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay.
The lead federal agency is the Federal Highway Administration, of course, led by the Virginia Division. And then the other, of course, of the lead would be, of course, the Virginia Department of Transportation. And then there is a list of participating agencies. I don't have that available as well. That's another group under the NEPA effort that can weigh in on comment. That's a little longer list when it includes many of the environmental and other agencies as part of that effort. And I believe, I'd have to check, so don't quote me on this, but I believe DPW is included as a participating agency so that they're involved. And they have had what are called stakeholder advisory group meetings, where they include that group and give them at times regular updates on where they are in the process. And I know the Prince George's DPW and T team and others have weighed in with their questions and comments as well to try and get some answers from the Virginia team.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Delegate Woods.
Yes, I wanted to ask you all if you could speak to VDOT's proposal at some point to possibly put in the light rail and then reduce it to one toll lane. I've asked this question and I've not gotten an answer yet. I've never in my life seen one toll lane on any highway. And so I'm very curious about that. And I had another question, Lord Jesus, I'm sorry, I can't remember, but definitely about the one tolling. I just can't, I know the other question was, in a conversation that we've had, is that these tolls would be tolls that would change. In other words, depending upon the amount of transportation, which as we're aware currently, they can have tolls to go up to $47 one way. This is a two-way toll lane. So if you can address that. And then again, this whole concept of them talking about having a one-lane toll lane, which I've never heard of.
So your core question there, as we kind of started of our three issues that they need to work to resolve better, is certainly this preservation of the space on the bridge and how that would work. In fairness to VDOT, they have said that, in their typical process, they work through their negotiations with a concessionaire to get to commercial close and resolve some of the specific technical aspects of how to do that and what would be the specific trigger points and points when they would force the concessionaire out of the lane. They do not feel like they're in position to provide the full articulation of that. However, we've kind of conveyed that they need to go a lot further than where they are. Just a high level, yep, we'll do it when we get there kind of thing is not cutting it for us. So we have that same concern, and I certainly don't have answers, and don't know that we didn't do research nationally to see if there's any toll lanes that are single lane. Maybe that exists somewhere in the country, but they have articulated as well that this would be a congestion pricing model similar to their other toll lanes. Those have been effective in other locations. They do help to manage traffic as a philosophy, but the tolling structure certainly has its challenges in terms of, the pricing can be tough for many people. So it's a congestion management approach. It has been proven effective in areas, but certainly for roadway users that are used to not paying a toll, that has its own level of controversy.
Understood. All right, thank you. Trying to see if there's any more last questions, 'cause I know it's about 10:01, and like I said, I know my members are working and doing a lot of other things, and so I want to try to wrap this up soon. One last question I have, if members don't have any additional questions, does MDOT forfeit their right to disagree with the ROD as a cooperating agency, or?
So ultimately, even if there's a record of decision on NEPA, we do have a controlling interest of Maryland. We can dictate the standards that they have to follow and issue them lane closure permits and other things that gives us some level of control over Maryland. It would be a little bit problematic to get a record of decision memorialized and then try to fight them all the way that this solution is like fundamentally flawed. That's we don't want to be there where
Right.
bona fide dispute about the fundamental solution. That's why, as the secretary articulated, we want them to resolve these three issues that we've outlined and not have us in this position where the preferred alternative doesn't meet our needs and your needs. So I'll say the road gets harder after NEPA, but we do have other levers down the road to kind of help to preserve our interests in Maryland.
Got it. Okay, thanks. All right. I know you dropped a couple of links in the chat. If you could send to Ms. Coleman or to my staff a copy of the map that you showed on the screen, that would be helpful. And I think we have the links with regards to the resource impact analysis methodology, as well as the link that we can forward to our constituents to make comments as well. And so, but yeah, any documents you have, if you could forward that to us, that would be great. And we can send that to all of the members of the delegation. And I see Ray just dropped in the chat. Project limits are approximately 11 miles, and Maryland's distance is approximately 2.5 miles. Okay, so that answers that question about the percentage of where we are in the full scope of this project. So about 2.5 miles of the 11 miles. Okay, so that's helpful. Okay.
And I also dropped the image of the map for download in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you. Awesome. Oh, Delegate Taveras, I see you have your hand up, and then we'll let you ask your question and we'll wrap it up from there.
No, I actually don't have a question. If it's possible for us to capture all these links and have it sent to us, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. I think Ms. Coleman or Mr. Harvey can take care of that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate Mr. Pines, Assistant Secretary Bridges. See, I'm gonna start naming names and I'm gonna forget folks. I shouldn't have started this, but I just want to appreciate, I really do appreciate everyone from MDOT, from State Highway, joining us this morning. I really appreciate you taking the time out to ask all of your answer all of our various questions and to give us an overview of this project that we know will impact the residents of Prince George's County. Delegate Harris, please check your mail in Annapolis. Oh, VDOT has sent us letters back in April that includes the maps. Okay. So yes, if you haven't gone to your office in Annapolis since Signy died, apparently there's something from MDOT on this in our physically in our mailboxes as well. So thank you guys so much. We really do appreciate you taking the time. Thank you, members, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. I thought it was really important for us to have this information and for us to have this conversation on this project. And so with that, I guess we will adjourn. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Have a nice day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All righty, bye-bye.
Take care.